Good morning, welcome back to another Friday Brew. Got my cup of tea ready. I'll actually turn it round. Careful not to spill it. Hashtag gifted. Arrogant. No, someone got that for me. I'm not that arrogant to buy myself a mug that has hashtag gifted on it. No, someone at work, I think it was last year, might have been maybe the Christmas before. You know, it's just like Christmas presents and stuff. And I felt really bad because I didn't get anyone anything. And all these people kind of turn up handing out presents and stuff. Jesus. But, so yeah, the Friday Brew with the gifted mug. The Friday Brew that very nearly wasn't. Oh, unbelievable. So I'll be absolutely honest and upfront with you. I got to a point the other day, I think I was just throwing my toys out of the pram, having a bit of a sulk, having a bit of a moan, and let my guard down a little bit on Twitter, which I don't usually do. And I was like, I think I'm kind of bored of... Well, not making vids. I'm not bored of making vids. I like making videos on... Look how bright it is down there as well. I can hardly see my finger because of the sun. So sunny up there. I do have eyes, believe it or not, but I've noticed I squint a lot on vid, but the light usually shines in. It's a nightmare. But anyway, yeah, I was like, oh, I think I'm kind of done for now, for at least. I didn't say I was going to walk away from Twitter. The channel would never be closed. Well, never say never, but I don't intend to. It's always drastic when people do that. They close their channel, they get rid of vids, delete them and stuff. It's too drastic and unnecessary. Especially someone like myself who's been making vids for a long time. I wouldn't do that. But I kind of felt, and I did touch upon this in a vlog, maybe 2 or 3 vlogs back. It may have been one of the questions asking about, have you ever thought about having a break, or how would you tackle it if you felt you needed one, that kind of stuff. Or quitting YouTube may have been one of the questions. And I said on that vlog that at Christmas, what I was going to do, I was going to take a break. Now, I didn't know how long that was going to be. That could have been a week or 2, or a month or 2, or longer. I didn't know, but I felt like I kind of needed to have one. And of course I didn't. And another year starts, and I've continued to make vids. But this is now, I think, the 6th vid I've made this year, and 5 of them have been Friday Brews, so vlogs essentially. And I love making them because I love the variety. But I think what the answer is, and I did kind of touch upon this when I was talking on Twitter about it, I think it's, I don't know if it's a long-term thing, I don't know if it's just a phase I'm going through, but it's specifically, if you want to use the word boredom or a slight lack of interest, it's not so much with YouTube, it's not making YouTube vids, because I like doing that. It's more gaming vids. There's something about gaming vids right now, making them, watching them, I'm just not really doing it. Now, obviously, if you're watching this and I've been subscribed to you for ages, then I've not unsubscribed or anything silly like that. And I have commented on a few vids, and I'll continue to comment on others. But I've not watched everything. It's just a phase, I think. I guess I've been doing it for so long. And with that said, though, I was looking at my last vids, and not just the last 6 this year, 5 being vlogs, and kind of somewhat gaming related, but they could be really about anything. And also these vlogs as well, these Friday Brews, they're largely dependent on what you guys ask. If you're kind enough to ask any questions, then you can ask anything, and it might not be about gaming. So I really like that. But looking back further, you know, going back to my last 55 videos, I think, 50, 55, 60 vids, and there were, I'd say, maybe 7 what you could absolutely categorically say that's a gaming vid, out of like 55 vids. And that's a lot of variety that I've got on the channel, and maybe I just didn't, maybe I didn't realise, and I'm only starting to realise now, looking at it, that wow, yeah, I really have stepped back from gaming. You know, the last 55 odd vids, we've had, yeah, there's been a few pickup vids in there as well. There's been, I think, 1, maybe Games X vid, like a magazine overview, but the rest hasn't been gaming related at all, unless it's been touched upon in a vlog like this. But we've had vlogs, we've had the diary vids, we've had some music vids, we've had some football vids. There was the 2 nostalgic Christmas vids I made. There was another nostalgic tag that I made in response to someone who's not part of the gaming community. So really, when I think about it, maybe I just hadn't realised. But looking at my channel, it's quite clear that it's moving away from being full-on gaming. I mean, that's been a conscious effort as well, albeit I tried to do that maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But maybe I've just kind of forgotten. because most people, I guess, who comment on my vids tend to be, generally speaking, people in the gaming community. So maybe sometimes I kind of forget that I've moved away. So when I had that funny 5 minutes the other day when I was like, do you know what, I might have a bit of a very extended hiatus. Maybe there's no need to, because maybe everybody who's subscribed, i.e. you, if you're not subscribed, why are you watching without hitting that button? But maybe everyone sees me as a channel that is quite eclectic. Maybe I've been pigeonholing myself, thinking that people see me as a gaming channel when that's not really what I am. I'm not embarrassed of having that on my channel, and it will be part of my channel going forward. But yeah, it's become more evident to me that, you know, especially looking at my content, there's not a lot of direct gaming related stuff on there. And is that just part of getting older? New responsibilities, hobbies, interests, all that kind of stuff. Surely you just can't carry on being gaming full on for years and years and years unless you truly love it. And obviously you're always going to have people who do. So yeah, I've not gone off gaming. I still play games. I still buy games. But I'm definitely not as into it as I used to be. But I think that's natural. So it'll be interesting to see what you guys think about that. You know, is it something you've gone through? You know, a bit of a gaming hiatus maybe, or a YouTube hiatus, or a YouTube gaming hiatus. So, and then if you've got a channel, you know, how have you combated that? What have you done to resolve it? Have you just taken a break, or have you just put out other content which isn't gaming? Or have you continued to make gaming vids, like under duress? And then maybe that's kind of dragged you deeper into a gaming lull, if you like. Or maybe it's helped you get out of it. I don't know, it's kind of weird. So yeah, so going forward, I think basically you're just going to get a continuation of what I've been doing for the past 6 months without fully realising it, which is a channel which is quite eclectic, which will have the occasional pickup vid, which may have the odd gameplay vid here and there, but I haven't done one of them for ages. But generally speaking, is going to be like a vlog-based channel with a lot of random stuff on there. And let's face it, even though most people watching like games, we all like everything else. We watch the news, we live life, we like music, we like movies, we like TV, current affairs, whatever it may be, sport. So maybe vids like this relate to people a lot more than maybe I initially thought. I think that's starting to register a little bit. Initially I thought it may put people off, but perhaps not. Maybe the length of the videos puts people off, I'll give you that. I know Craig Minx36 left a comment. I've not yet replied to it, Craig. I'll do that in a few minutes. Well, not a few minutes. Obviously, I'll be making this video later on tonight. And he said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something like, you know, I always mean to leave a comment, but by the time I've got to the end of the vid, like whether it's a day or two later, however long it takes for him to watch it, because they are long vids, he's like, I forgot what I was going to say. And I'm exactly the same, but I'm the same with videos that are 20 minutes long. I'll think of something to say, and then come the end of a 20-minute video, I'll forget it. Again, maybe part of getting older, your mind's just rubbish, innit? But, weirdly, remember in the past, I remember that very clearly. I can tell you what I was wearing 30 years ago, but I can't remember what happened 5 minutes ago. It's absolutely bizarre. So, yeah, so I had that funny 5 minutes on Twitter the other day. I embarrassingly sent Steve, Addy Sneaker Freak, private message, a DM on Twitter. The reason I did that is because he sent me a book in my last vlog. It's a brilliant book, the football book, which I showed and talked about. And I sent him a message because what I was thinking of doing was making my videos this year private, just until I'd kind of summoned that enthusiasm and will to carry on with YouTube. And I said, look, mate, I hope you don't mind. I'm not saying I'm going to do this. I'm just kind of thinking of doing it. I hope you're not offended, blah, blah, blah. And of course he was like, whatever, mate, it's up to you, I'm fine. Which, Steve's a nice lad. I knew he'd be like that anyway, but I thought it's best to at least run it by him, just in case I decided to do it. But I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And then afterwards, it might have been the same day, I can't remember. I didn't tweet myself about it. I didn't make it that public. But what I did was I responded, I think, to someone else's tweet. And the conversation kind of unfolded about YouTube and feelings, and a few other people got involved. And yeah, I kind of sort of let my guard down a little bit. Like I say, I don't usually do that, but I was like, oh, I think I'm a bit bored of it. I needed a break at Christmas, and I didn't have one. I'm a bit tired of the gaming stuff. And then, of course, you go to sleep, you wake up the next day, and you're like, I feel all right now. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. It was just getting it off my chest. And maybe sometimes that's what we need to do. Say it, get it off your chest, and then you can kind of recuperate. Maybe that's what it was. But I feel good now. I feel quite positive about my YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, for a few minutes the other day, it was like, oh, I could have just walked. I'd have been back, but I could have walked and went on a bit of a hiatus or a vacation, holiday, call it what you will. So that is that. Now, I'll tell you something weird happened the other day. I was talking about it getting sunny. It's now starting to get a little bit darker, at least on the camera. Outside, it's not too dark, but definitely darker. Anyway, so the other day at around about 5:30 something in the morning, give or take, you know when you're asleep and you think you hear a noise, and I thought I heard a noise outside. Now, what I thought I heard, as I was half asleep and all groggy and all that kind of stuff, was I thought I heard like a police siren going off and someone shouting, like through like a speaker, you know, that sound of it being amplified like a voice, a policeman, I guess, saying stop or something like that. But because I was so tired and I thought it was like a dream and I wasn't fully with it, I just went back to sleep. And then like a few seconds or a minute later or whenever it was, my wife said, and she denies she says this, by the way, but she definitely did at the time. She said to me, the police are storming the neighbour's house. Now, as you can imagine, that definitely woke me up. So I was like, what? So immediately, eyes like kind of full on wide awake, and got out of bed. And I didn't put any lights on because it was still pitch black outside, like 5-ish in the morning. But I could hear a little bit of commotion going on. No shouting, but just movement. And I could see some flashlights, torches being shone. And in like the neighbour's garden, or their driveway really, and their front garden. And all around, I thought, what the hell is that? So I kind of came out the bedroom, came through into here, which is like a spare room, essentially, games room. And I looked outside, and directly opposite, not parked outside our house, but on the same street, but like more in the middle of the road, really, was a police car. The sirens weren't on, but the lights were flashing. And there was a car at the end of the street, and there's 2 other police cars further up the street. So obviously something had kicked off. And I'm thinking, bloody hell, what is going on? So I was trying to listen, I couldn't really hear anything. So I turned off the house alarm. So thank God there's a house alarm, you know what I mean? If you haven't got one, get one. Peace of mind, if anything. And turned that off. Because what I wanted to do, like a proper kind of curtain twitcher, I wanted to open the window in this room here, just round the corner there, and listen to see what I could hear, obviously. But I couldn't hear a lot because it wasn't kicking off outside. It was like a few houses up, really. So I could just hear like muffled noises and the occasional word here and there. But I couldn't really see anything because it was pitch black. I took a few photographs. I'm going to put them on the screen, but you'll see like how pointless and useless they are because it was pitch black, as I keep saying, and I didn't have the flash on, because if I had the flash on and the police saw the camera shining through, that wouldn't have been clever. So I had to just take a standard photograph, or 2 or 3, I think. They all look the same. They're all dreadful quality. All you can basically see are what looks like police lights. In fact, you probably wouldn't even know they're police lights if I wasn't telling you that now. And now you can look at the pics and go, yeah, actually, I can see how it looks like that. But the pictures reveal absolutely nothing. But it was quite a scary moment, really, because, I mean, obviously the police kind of had it under control. Now, I hadn't heard it because I was asleep to begin with, but apparently my wife said the police were saying, like, drop your weapon or put your gun down, all that kind of stuff. And now, the long story short, eventually they went away maybe like an hour later. So it was all kind of done and dusted within 35 minutes or an hour maximum. And then it started to get light, and then it's just, you know, business resumes. It's just another day. But what had happened, because I had a look online, and it must have made the local news, but I didn't even watch it, who cares? But I looked online. Basically what had happened is a guy in his 20s had, he was drunk when he was driving, and he was swaying back and forth, driving on the wrong side of the road, essentially. And this was probably about 5 miles away. And a cop car who was doing his early morning patrol saw him. So he followed him and obviously was asking him to pull over. And this guy wasn't pulling over. And he kept going. So he eventually crashed, being drunk and swerving around all that kind of stuff. He crashed into like a signpost. Must have been somewhere near here, like at the end of the street or somewhere around there. And then, of course, he fled. He fled on foot. And, of course, he just so happened to bloody flee near where I live. Thank you very much, you knobhead. But the worst bit about it, and of course this is probably not going to surprise anyone in the UK especially, is he had a gun on him. He had a shotgun. An average citizen with a shotgun. Come on, this is so unnecessary. This country's mad. It's a great country. I really do like it. So I'm not going to slag it off. But the gun problem, it's an epidemic. It's a big, big, big problem. And I've never been comfortable with it. You know, just people roaming around freely just with shotguns. It's just, that's not normal. And so anyway, what had happened is he'd fled on foot. And that's when the police kind of chased him up here. And a little bit further up the street. And then a few other cop cars turned up. Now, luckily for him, he didn't get shot. He could easily have been shot. And, you know, the police come in for a lot of flack of being very trigger happy. But I think in a situation where there's a guy waving a shotgun at you, you can be forgiven for saying to the police, yeah, to be fair, you know, you couldn't have any complaints if they'd have shot him. Absolutely not. You're a maniac if you're going to be confronting the police with a gun. A maniac. But what this guy had done, when he was fleeing, he'd thrown his gun somewhere. The police didn't know. And that's what they were kind of looking for. And I think it was either the neighbour, as close as the neighbour, or maybe one or two up, was where he'd thrown the shotgun. So the police obviously found it and took it away. And now what I did hear, just before it started to get light, was some very kind of muffled voices of someone who was very clearly intoxicated. And I mean full on, proper K-lied, off their face, off the trolley, however many other words you want to, paralytic. He was really gone. It was unbelievable. Drunk as a skunk. I can carry on doing this. And that must have been the guy. He can't have been a policeman. So I remember him kind of swearing in a very kind of drunk and drawn-out sentenced way. And so he was obviously arrested. I don't know what happened to him, but he must have been charged with A, for possession of a firearm, B, for drink driving, C, for resisting arrest, D, for threatening police officers, and whatever other charges he's probably going to get. So he's probably going to be spending some time in the slammer, and rightly so. You can't be doing that. But again, it just reminded me of the gun issue in America. And when I looked on the local website for like the local newspaper or whatever it was, or it might have been a local police department, I can't remember. Obviously, it lists all the local kind of incidents and calls that people have had, and it says what it's about and where it was. Like, was it a disturbance? Was it drunken behaviour? Whatever it may have been. And the list every single day there's loads of them on there. And just even looking at some stories that didn't even make the news. People being shot, stabbings taking place, burglaries, breaking-ins in shops and stuff. And we live in a fairly decent part of town, a fairly nice area-ish. But it just goes to show that these things happen everywhere. It's America, man. The thing to bear in mind, though, is it's such a big country. So, to be fair, sometimes it makes things amplified. It makes things seem as if the problems may be worse than what it is. Because the country's so big, because there's so many people, it makes it look like there's crimes happening all the time. And that, whilst that is somewhat true, I think it's a little bit blown out of proportion, given the scale of the country and the amount of inhabitants, the population. So you do have to bear that in mind. But in a slight contradiction, of course, I was looking at this list, seeing all these crimes and thinking, Jesus, there's a lot of stupid people around. It's just a shame. And it's the one thing which has continuously made me a little bit edgy about living in America. Although I've never personally been in a situation that has been frightening. I mean, there was that, but that wasn't really involving me, and it was just someone running away from a situation up the street. There was another one where, at my last job, I was on the first floor. Well, there's only 2 floors, the ground floor and the first floor. And I was on the first floor, and I heard a bit of noise outside. I may have touched upon this on vid, I'm not sure. If I did, it would have been last year or the year before. And I looked outside, and there was a cop pointing a gun, like in our car park at work, or like the driveway, pointing a gun at a bush. And I thought, has this guy gone mad? What's going on? And I was looking at it, and I called a few of my work colleagues over quietly, and I was like, come on, look at this. And of course, we were all spying down, looking like bird's eye, eagle eye view of this cop pointing a gun, talking to a bush. And anyway, obviously, as you can imagine, basically there was a guy who was hiding in there, and he refused to come out. And the cop was like, if you don't come out, I'm going to shoot. And I was like, wow, I didn't know what to do. I thought, well, I'm not going to get involved, because I don't want to get involved. I can't get involved. It's not my place, and it's dangerous. But I thought, I don't want to watch a policeman shoot a guy hiding in a bush. I don't want to witness that. So what do I do? And we were all like, well, we can't really do anything. So we just sort of watched it, and eventually the guy must have got a little bit scared, and he essentially just kind of slowly kind of crept out the bush with his arms up. And he wasn't a young guy either, you know, he's like probably in his 30s or 40s. He wasn't a pensioner or anything. But he was old enough to know better. I thought a teenager was going to come out of the bush, but it's definitely someone 10, 20 odd years older. And then the cop just arrested him and off he went. I think he had some heroin or something. Say it so casually, you know, it's just America, it's California, it's drugs, it's whatever. It's the way it is. And you could see it there, like these bags that he'd left. And the cop took him off. And I could have, if I was a criminal, I could have just went down there, took that heroin, sold it, and I wouldn't be doing this video. Trust you and me, I'd be off on an island. Or if I was making YouTube vids, I'd be making them on an island somewhere, a nice mansion, having sold the gear. No, I'm joking. But yeah, apart from that, I can't think of many other examples. You see a lot of cops around, you see a lot of cop cars, you hear the sirens go off quite a lot, you hear a lot of stories, but generally speaking, I don't really directly, well, not generally speaking, I just don't get involved naturally with any kind of aggression or that kind of stuff. But America, it's that country, isn't it? You get it everywhere, but America's very prevalent when it comes to kind of gun crime and that kind of stuff. And it's, oh, Jesus, you just got to take the rough with the smooth. That's what this country's all about. If you don't like it, get out. It's as simple as that. Like anywhere, isn't it? And maybe I will get out one day, but no, it's all right. I've been here 10 years, so it's fine. And generally speaking, the people are really nice. It's just like I say, I think it's the fact that the country is so big that these when these situations happen, it does make you panic a little bit, and you think it's maybe more widespread than what it is, even though it does happen more than it should, a lot more. But anyway, that's that. So yeah, so I've talked about my YouTube kind of thing, and the whole gaming vibe, not really feeling it as much. I'm still buying games, I'm still playing them, I'm still enjoying it, but I have started to trim my own collection a little bit, if you want to call it a collection. I've never really seen myself as a collector. And, of course, I'll talk about this in a bit more depth in a second, but we had Pete Snestastic made his vid. But it's funny because it's come at a time where there's a lot of people who are selling their entire collections or trimming their collections and getting rid of stuff. And yeah, I'm no different. I've kept it quiet, but I'm no different. In fact, between you and me, you know, don't tell anyone, just between you and me, because you know what Twitter's like and Facebook and YouTube. So if anyone finds out, I'll know you told them. So between you and me, this, all right. But yeah, before Christmas, a good month or two before Christmas, I sold a few things. And in all honesty, there's probably another couple of things that I've got which I could sell as well. So I'm not going to talk about what I've sold because I want to wait until the other stuff has gone first, if I decide to sell it before I talk about it. But yes, I have sold a few things. And it got to the point with me, it's that whole thing with, like, you know, 40 on the horizon, and I'm thinking I need to do something about, just for me, we're all different, but I felt like my life's kind of going in a slightly different positive direction, where I don't want to be stocking up on a load of games and systems unless they really do mean something to me and unless I play them. You know, if I've got something that I'm not using and haven't used for a long, long time, and maybe more crucially, don't see myself using, then just get rid of it. I know some people, and again, I'm going to talk more in depth about Pete's vid, but some comments on that vid in particular were along the lines of, well, you know, I don't understand why you're doing that, i.e. selling it. Just store it away, put it in a cupboard, put it in the loft, put it in your basement, wherever, come back to it when you're ready. And whilst that isn't bad advice, it's kind of good advice. Everybody's different. There's no point saying that to someone if they don't want it. And if they want a clean break from gaming, then storing it away isn't going to help. Sometimes people need a complete, you know, like a cold turkey kind of syndrome. And I was a little bit like that. I just thought, well, I looked at a few systems. Am I playing them? Not really. Do I want to play them? No, not really. When was the last time I played them? In some cases, we're talking 2 and 3 years. And I just thought, it's just kind of ridiculous. What am I going to do with them? And worst case scenario, you can always buy it back. But for me, I've never really, there's obviously been the odd exception, but I've never really been that kind of person who buys, sells, buys, sells, buys, sells. Give or take the odd exception, like all of us really. That's not really what I'm about. When I have something and I'm bored of it and I decide to sell it, then once it's gone, I don't get it back. I always use the example of my Japanese N64 games. Now, at the start of my YouTube channel, nearly said career there, Not much of a career, not monetised, 1,500 subs or less, whatever. Worst career ever. But at the start of my YouTube channel, or early on anyway into it, I was into the Japanese N64. I had a lot of games. Ironically, I ended up with 64 games. It was just fate, just the way it was. I didn't plan that. But I got to 64 games, and I looked at it one day, and I thought, I'm not really playing these games. I'm not really enjoying buying them. I like the artwork. The Japanese artwork looks cool. I do like the N64 in terms of nostalgia, but I'm not playing them. Most of the games are completely in Japanese. Doesn't help. Don't speak Japanese. Never will. Some of the games are in like kind of half English, but what use is that? It just seemed a bit pointless. Nobody on YouTube told me to get rid of them. Nobody suggested it. I don't think anybody knew I was kind of a little bit bored of it. But I knew. It came, admittedly, just one day sort of out of the blue. But the minute I knew was the minute I knew, and I just had to get rid of them. I stuck them on eBay. I put them on a relatively low buy it now price because I just wanted shot of them. And speaking of guns, and I just got rid of them. Someone bought them. I knew I was selling them for a bit of a bargain, but I wasn't playing them, so why did I care? It was just money that was sitting on a shelf. So I got rid of them. And to this day, 7 years later, or whatever it is, I've not bought any Japanese N64 games back. Until now. No, I'm joking. I haven't got any. And the interest just isn't there. What's the point? The artwork looks good. I can appreciate if somebody else buys them and they can look cool on the shelf and all that kind of stuff. But for me, just not into them. So, yeah, I've never really been that kind of person who buy, sells, and I've been on a continuous loop. Certainly when it comes to systems, there's been the odd game here and there. But there could be many reasons for that. Maybe I sold the game because I finished it and maybe I wanted to get it back for a stupid reason. And it is a stupid reason, such as I wanted to get all the achievements or the trophies like a square. Or maybe a friend was playing it, like an online game, so I bought it back. There's always those kind of exceptions, I guess. So, yeah, but generally speaking, I'm not really that kind of person who does it. But a lot of people are doing it. I've seen it on Facebook, people definitely selling things more and more than ever. And it's that snowball, I think, isn't it, on YouTube? Pete put his video out, and obviously people have done it throughout time. It's nothing new, but it's that snowball effect, domino effect. Pete did it the other day, and now a lot of people are starting to look at their own collections, assess what they're buying, assess what they have, and say, yeah, I think I need to get rid of some stuff too. So I hope it doesn't mean everyone's going to leave YouTube and there's going to be like a mass exodus. You know, speaking of me at the start thinking of taking a break, I hope that's not the case. You know, if people are feeling a little bit disillusioned with gaming, then like me, remember, you can always do other things on your channel. If people like it, if people like you, they'll probably stick around. And if they want to unsubscribe, I'm not going to take it personally. Maybe someone's watching this right now, or has been in the past, and maybe they unsubscribed. And all they wanted to see from me was gaming. And if I'm not going to provide that for them as a viewer and as their own individual, then that's their right completely to unsub. I totally get it. If I was subscribing to some of my best friends on here, some of my best friends, and they just made it clear they were stopping doing gaming and instead they were going to become like a DIY channel, I'd probably unsubscribe, eventually anyway. I certainly wouldn't watch. And it's nothing personal. It's just like, I'm not into that. You know, I'm lazy for a start. I'm not doing something. If I can pay someone to do it for me, then I'll do that. But I'm not building stuff. Forget it. No chance. But we're all different, aren't we? So, but yeah, a lot of people have done it. Now, speaking of Pete in particular, let's have a bit of a swig. Nearly 30 minutes in, so the swig is long overdue. Yeah, Pete's vid. Now, I've got to be honest. Obviously, Pete's been here a few times in the past of buying things, selling things, and announcing it essentially on YouTube. I think that's where he's gone wrong. Although ultimately, I think it's a good thing, because it gives him kind of closure, or maybe hopefully will this time. Maybe if you don't say anything, you're more likely to get back into old habits. And I think Pete's one of those who's very susceptible to influence. If people talk about games, whether even on Twitter, you know, the amount of times, Pete, without throwing you under the bus, mate, you've probably said this yourself, the amount of times Pete will say in a sentence, you know, and he'll say something to me that he's not into something, and then I'll say, oh, well, I am, because this, and this. He'll be like, oh, yeah, good point, actually. I might get that. He's very easily influenced. I mean, I am too, to be fair, but he definitely is. But he wears his heart on his sleeve. I think that's one of the things that people like about him. That's one of the reasons he's a mate of mine. One of the many reasons. He's just a nice guy, and he's honest. And I think people like that honesty in people, because not everybody's that honest and open on camera. But Pete tends to say a lot of things that we feel, but we wouldn't say ourselves, because we don't want the flack. We don't want people thinking we're idiots, where Pete tends to think, well, if people think I'm an idiot, so what? He just doesn't care. And I kind of admire that, and I'm quite envious of that in a way. Me, on the other hand, it's like, no, I don't want anyone knowing I'm an idiot. I don't know. No thanks. They can think that. They'd be wrong. But if they want to think that, that's fine. But I don't want to give people ammunition to think that, you know. That's just not me. But we're all different. But yeah, Pete is very susceptible to being influenced into buying things. Obviously, he started off really strongly with his American snares several years ago now. And then he sold it. It was pretty much out of the blue. I mean, we talked about it because I've known Pete for many years. So I knew he was kind of going through that phase before he talked about it on YouTube. But it was still a surprise when it all went. And then, of course, he got back into it. And then it went again. And then the Japanese Famicom thing started. And then that went. And then the PAL stuff started. This is the point with this. When Pete showed off, because remember he got back into the Amiga. He hadn't bought the system, but he started stocking up on games. And I was a little bit worried with that. Not to the point of losing sleep, but I was, as a mate, I was thinking, I'm not sure this is a good idea. Maybe you should get the Amiga first, then start getting the games. But he was stocking up on games, and he must have got, I don't know, 10, a dozen, 15 games. It was something around about that. And he was showing the games off on a pickups vid. And in my opinion, and it seems a little bit, you know, just for what it's worth, I looked at the games, and I'm just being honest. I'm being honest. I looked at the games Pete was showing, and I didn't think they were very good. Give or take a couple. But of course, taste is subjective, so just because I don't like it, who cares? Who cares if you don't like it? If the person buying it likes it and they want it, then that is all that matters. But and I could be wrong, but I just got a feeling that Pete was buying stuff without really thinking about it. I'm not saying he didn't like games like Soccer Kid and Pit Fighter. Those are the two that spring to mind. He bought the Chaos Engine, which is a good game to be fair. But there's a few others I remember just thinking, they're all right at best, but if you're going to spend that much money, and to get maybe pushing 15 games, you must have spent, Pete, about 100 quid at least. Probably more, including shipping to get them. If you're going to start laying out that kind of money for games on a system you don't even own, at least get really good, desirable titles. And I just felt, it was just a feeling. That's all it was. And you could say, well, I was right to have that feeling because of look where it ended up. But it was just a gut feeling at the time. I just thought those pickups, I mean, they're not really grade A quality, not triple A quality. And I thought we could get to a situation where we got to. And of course it happened. So, yeah, it's a shame, but it happens to all of us. Again, I don't know if it's that thing of Pete getting to a certain age, like we all do, and looking at life and thinking there's more to this than just spending hundreds upon hundreds or thousands of pounds, dollars, whatever it may be, on games, showing them off on YouTube, and then rinse and repeat. There's no harm in enjoying your hobby, spending money and showing it, but don't put it ahead of life. Don't do that. You know, if there's things you need to do in life, going on a holiday, exploring the world, just going out and getting some exercise, getting some fresh air on your lungs, you know, make sure you're doing that. You can always have gaming as a hobby, or any other hobby for that matter. Don't let it take over, because when it does, it's a nightmare, and we've all been there. The only other thing I want to briefly touch upon, gaming related as well, funnily enough, not going to talk about gaming, then talk about gaming the entire vid. Toys R Us. Toys R Us is closing down. What's all that about? Now, I just thought it was in the UK, a couple of branches in the UK, when I heard that news 2 or 3 weeks back, whenever it was. But no, I heard it the other day over here, and it's, yeah, all the branches in the States and in the UK are closing. Have they got them anywhere else? I don't even know. I've not done any Toys R Us research. Can't pretend I have. And yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame because there was one branch in particular. I put some photographs, as always, on my vlogs. There's one branch in Poole near Bournemouth, where we used to live before I moved down. Before I moved to America, I should say. And yeah, so I was living in that neck of the woods for the best part of 20 years. And Toys R Us, I think, was there when we moved down. And so my memories of some games in particular, like Super Soccer, I remember buying Super Soccer for the Super Nintendo. So it would have been like 1992. I remember going in, remember seeing it, remember buying it. I remember nearly buying Exhaust Heat for the SNES. I clearly can picture standing there with my dad and looking at that kind of, you know, they had the cutout or whatever it was of the game in like a hanging tab. And you can see the screenshots and the price tag and all that kind of stuff. And it was, what you'd do, they wouldn't have the boxes out on display. You'd take one of those hanging tabs off the shelf, like a coat hanger kind of thing, and then you'd take it to the counter and you'd pay for it. And then they'd go out and get it. Obviously, you wouldn't pay for the tab. That'd be a waste of money. But so I remember that so clearly. I remember randomly buying Psychic Detective on the PlayStation 1 from Toys R Us, from that particular store. I remember seeing for the very first time, and it just blew me away. There was like a pod, an arcade kind of pod, whatever you want to call it, and it was showing Super Mario 64. The N64 had just come out, and I remember doing a double take when I went by it, and I was like, that looks amazing. I'd never seen it before, I'd never heard of it, and I had to go on it, moving Mario around this 3D world. It was just amazing. It really impressed me. So I've got a lot of memories from that store, a lot of others as well from there. I remember, and it's a shame to see it go. It's a shame to see retail stores go. I think a lot of people sometimes don't bat an eyelid, but I'm one of those people who I don't lose any sleep over it, but I'm slightly concerned about the future, you know, because we had it with Woolworths. What's the next one to be gone? We had all the was it GameStop in the UK? Or was it, no, it's GameStation, it's GameStop over here, isn't it? A GameStation going. And whatever else for that matter, all these big name brands going. What happened to John Menzies? And the big problem I find is, where are all the people going to get jobs? Because all these things are going online, because people are buying online, people are shopping less when it comes to retail. So more people are going to be out of work, surely. And it's quite worrying long term. You know, what we're going to get to, what situation within society further down the line. If all the retail shops go, then what's it going to be like for employment? It could be a nightmare. It might be sort of scaremongering, it might be thinking about it a little bit too much, overthinking. But I'm not going to lie, it's definitely crossed my mind a few times. You know, but then again, I don't help the cause because I buy online, and you probably do as well. But it's just a shame. It would be nice to see a lot of retail outlets surviving, not just surviving, but thriving. Maybe the solution, is for the government to implement some kind of tax system where if you buy something online, you pay, 10, 15 quid more, or whatever it may be, whatever percentage it works out. But then that's quite unfair. What if it's freedom of choice? What if you don't want to go out? What if it's pissing down with rain? What if you've not got transport? What if you are elderly? What if any other circumstance you can think of? So you shouldn't be punished into paying more. So then it comes down to this sense of obligation. As members of a community, should we be supporting our local shops? Or even if it's national chains, I should say. Maybe supporting those if those are in our towns and cities. It's a tough one, because online shopping has just taken over, hasn't it, really? And I do it and you do it. What's the solution? But yeah, I do worry about jobs. I really do. Maybe society will get to a point one day where everybody is given a handout. Even if you're working, you're given a certain handout to survive. But then again, why that may not encourage certain people to work if they're going to get a handout, a guaranteed one. But then again, if there's no jobs, what are people going to do? It's a weird situation. A question to answer for another day, maybe. So yeah, so Toys R Us, it's a real shame that it's going, and I'm sure near where you live there must be a Toys R Us, or has been in the past, and surely everyone's been to a Toys R Us at some point. So that's a real shame. It's a real shame, but it's just a sign of the times, isn't it? All right, so the first question's from Aaron Preston. Aaron, thank you. I'm not sure you've asked questions before, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much. How often do you get back to the UK? Never. Never, mate. I've been in America for 10 years. It's really hard to get back to the UK. Well, in terms of finances, of course, and finding the time off. And it coincided with my wife getting time off, it coincided with family in the UK. All sorts of factors that you have to take into consideration. The cost as well. It's expensive. So I don't do it. I really should be doing it soon. Over the course of the last 3 years, I've had 3 lots of family from the UK come and see me, which is good. obviously, including last year. So, yeah, but I don't. I really don't. So I need to start doing it a lot more. But like I say, comes down to money, comes down to getting the time off. Question 2. I'm going to the Etihad next week to watch Argentina versus Italy. Any recommendations on decent pubs? Argentina versus Italy? I didn't even know that's taking place. Obviously it must be the rugby. Yes. Well, actually, no. To be honest, mate, I think you're probably going to struggle to find pubs in a traditional sense around the Etihad. Now, bear in mind, it's a long time since I've been in the UK, so things may have changed in that decade. But whilst you may not find a traditional pub, I'd say within around about 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe, you've really got to branch out. What you will find are a few bars. There's one called Mary D's Bar. I recommend going there. That's a good one. I think it may be home supporters only, and I'm sure at one stage you required some kind of membership to it. I could be wrong on that, but that's got a good reputation. It's in kind of, with respect, to quite a rough sort of area. But that's a good place. I recommend that. If it's even open for a rugby match, it might not be. So Mary D's Bar's a good one. But really thinking about it, you're probably better off just going to the city centre. It's obviously not far, and you'll be spoilt for choice. So that's probably the best place to go there. But yeah, next to Mary D's Bar, there what's it called? Mary D's Beamer Bar, I think it's its full name. But next to that, there's a fish and chip shop. In fact, if you like fish and chip shops, or just like fish and chips, it'd be weird if you just like fish and chip shops. You don't like fish and chips, but fish and chip shops, oh, you love them. But yeah, if you like fish and chips, you'll be sorted. They're everywhere, mate, everywhere. Outside the grounds, I can think off the top of my head like 5 places. And right next door to Mary D's, there's one. I can't remember what you call it. Mine's got Tony's Fish and Chips, something like that. I can't remember. But that's a good one. And also, you didn't point out whether you're a United fan or a City fan. If you're a United fan, don't ask why I know this. Well, it should be obvious, really. But there's Lou Macari's, and there's a pub called, don't go to it, the Bishop Blaze. Because never in my life have I seen so many 55-year-old men in replica shirts in one place at one time to mess. And that's literally right outside of Old Trafford. Again, don't ask why I was there. It was a long story. Shouldn't even have brought it up. But yeah, if you're a United fan, then 2 for the price of 1 there. And they're within like walking distance of like, within a stone's throw. 15 feet or something. Bishop Blaze, Lou Macari's Fish and Chip Shop, Old Trafford in the middle. But yeah, the city centre, mate, is your best bet. Question number 3. Do you have a Scottish team that you follow? If not, I have a recommendation. And you didn't say who your recommendation was, so I'm not going to say I'm going to have your recommendation. Who is it? It's funny you say that because sort of, Aaron. 2 teams in a way. But there's kind of, it sounds ridiculous. There's 4 teams in Scotland I kind of like. But that's not to be confused with 4 teams I follow. Let me get 2 of them out of the way that I don't support and I don't follow. There's just a certain amount of nostalgia about it. One of them is Dundee United. And it's just because I remember as a kid when Dundee United went on that amazing run to the UEFA Cup final against Gothenburg, beating Barcelona along the way. And I think, didn't they beat them home and away in that competition? And I remember getting ready for school and seeing what it seemed like it was every morning, and clearly it wasn't. It would have been once every few weeks or something. But I remember getting ready for school and Lorraine Kelly on TVAM talking about Dundee United's latest game, and it was watching them progressing. Every week it seemed they'd get further, well, because they did, or every month or whatever it was. And it's just nostalgic. I remember it being on the news and they were showing the goals for it, and they'd be sitting on that sofa on TVAM, Lorraine Kelly and maybe Richard Keys, Anne Diamonds, Nick Owen, whoever it would have been at the time. And it takes me back to when I was a kid, and I was young at the time, but I very much remember it. So Dundee United, to me, at that time, it seemed, oh, they must be a really big team because they get to the final of the UEFA Cup. They beat Barcelona. And of course, they are a big team in their own right, but they've never quite hit those same levels, have they? Not really. But I've always kind of looked out for them as a result of 1987, I think it was. So there's that. And around about that time, and pushing on into the early 90s as well, Aberdeen. Aberdeen, because they used to put up a real big threat to Rangers specifically at the time when Celtic weren't doing anything. So because they were a big team and they were winning a lot of stuff and competing, I sort of wouldn't say I looked out for their results. I more noticed them. So I just became a bit of not a fan. I just admired them, I guess, for what they were achieving. But no, I wouldn't say I support. Well, I don't support them. But the two that I kind of look out for and keep a bit of a close eye on are Celtic, oddly enough, you know, and St Mirren. And the reason why is because on my dad's side, my great-grandparents kind of came from, in fact, it was one grandparent and great-grandparents on another side. Convoluted story. But they basically came from Glasgow and Port Glasgow. So because of that, well, I just wanted to follow a team in and around that area. So Glasgow, Celtic, Port Glasgow, which is not far, obviously, from Glasgow, St Mirren, Paisley area. So I like to see St Mirren doing well. They did atrociously last season, although they did amazing to pull away at the end of the season and stay up. And then this season, top of the league. Going to be back in the SPL next year, aren't they? It's looking that way anyway. And Celtic, yeah, it's just a family thing. There's people in my family who are football fans, generally speaking, like Celtic. 99% of them, I've got to say, Man United and Celtic. Black sheep of the family. Blue sheep of the family. What can I say? So, but yeah, who's your recommendation, Aaron? I can't say it's probably a good idea to add another team to my list of teams that I support in Scotland, but it'll be interesting to see who you support because I'm not sure. So I'll have to tell me. Thank you very much. Dylan Craven, that's John's dad, John Craven's News Round. Sorry, Dylan. Not really. I know you saw Pete Snestastic's video, Speak of the Devil, about him giving up on the retro collecting and sticking to modern gaming. Hang on, how do you know? You've been spying on me. How do you know I watched that? Do you think there's a point, or do you think it becomes a point where this hobby can become an unhealthy one? And what do you think the signs could be? Oh, yeah, absolutely. I may have touched upon it when I went on my little spiel about collecting and buying and all that kind of stuff and selling things and hoarding. Yeah, it can absolutely become unhealthy, without question. Most people watching this would have gone through that experience of it dragging you down mentally, psychologically, subconsciously, and maybe it's only later you think, well, it probably got to me. Some of the signs, I guess, buying things that you don't play, maybe more crucially, buying things that you don't want. I know it sounds silly, but I mean, you find yourself bidding on things on eBay. A big one is pickup vids, for example. I know I said I'd probably make another one in the next couple of weeks, and that's still the case because I do have some games I'd like to share. Not share to give, not that generous, not yet, maybe one day. But back in the day, when pickup videos were massive in the YouTube community, everybody did them. It was really easy just to buy things to get that buzz off people who would like your video and leave comments. They'd almost egg you on, encourage you to buy more. And how could you get that hit again? Those kind of like, it's like dopamine, wasn't it? Dopamine. And, well, how could you get it again? Well, buy more stuff to make another vid and rinse and repeat. So I used to do that a lot. I don't mind admitting that. I feel embarrassed saying it. I don't do it anymore. But yeah, pickup videos used to be a common thing on my vid because I used to love the attention. Everybody does. Again, I'm being honest by saying that, but most people who went through it back then, you'll know what I mean. We all made a lot of pickup vids, and we loved the attention, the buzz that people would like the vid and comment and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. But what I found myself doing even back then was buying games that I wasn't that bothered about. Now, I can't say I ever bought a game that I hated. It wasn't that drastic, but there was things which I was taking punts on, which really wasn't my cup of tea. But I was buying it anyway because it was another game to buy and it was another video to make. And I just kind of got into that mould of just buying stuff I didn't really want. So yeah, buying things you don't want, buying things you don't need, buying things... Also, you've got to question, why are you buying things? Are you buying things because of nostalgia? Because if you're buying things for nostalgia, then don't be tempted to buy things which other people have nostalgia for. Because that's their nostalgia. It doesn't mean to say you're going to like it. So that's another mistake people have made, I've made in the past. Watching someone show off, I don't know, like, I'm trying to think of something random, the Sega Master System. Now, I played on the Master System once or twice as a kid at a friend's house, but I hardly knew anybody who had them. So really, the nostalgia, certainly in terms of owning it and playing it, it's just not there. Yet I found myself buying games, and in some cases for other systems, looking on looking on eBay as a result of watching YouTube vids, checking out prices. Well, why? Because I don't want them. I never had one. I've got no nostalgia for it. I'm not saying they're bad systems. They're just not for me. So you just be careful what you buy. There's a lot of pitfalls that you can fall in. Spending too much money is another one. You've got to be really careful. Do not prioritise games over life. If you need to pay the bills, if you're struggling to pay bills, if you're not doing anything in your life, if you're not having fun, especially if you're married and you've got kids and all that kind of stuff as well, and you're maybe not giving them attention, it sounds quite deep, but you have to do that. Don't prioritise games. Don't prioritise YouTube. You know, if people want to unsubscribe because you haven't uploaded a video for a few weeks or a few months, that's not your problem. It really isn't. You know, your true friends and the people who like watching your stuff will stick around. So don't, what's the word? Don't conform to what other people want. You've got to do what you want to do. So there's just a few recommendations, Dylan, but I'm sure also you'll figure it out. I think sometimes that's another lesson. Sometimes you kind of have to. Advice is great. Absolutely, of course it is. But sometimes you figure things out yourself. You can have all the people in the world saying to you, why are you buying for that system? Don't waste your money. Stop buying games. But sometimes you only figure that out when it registers to you. And it could be random. Like I said with the N64 stuff earlier on, Japanese N64. Nobody told me to stop buying it, even though I was going like a bloody steamroller. I really was, like full on. Is that even a phrase, like a steamroller? I think it is. Like a roller coaster. Like a Ferrari, let's have that one. I was buying left, right and centre. And, or is it even right, left and centre? I tell you what, it's dyslexic day, this. Everything's in the wrong order. But, yeah, I was just buying N64 games like crazy. But no one ever said, Alex, you're buying a lot of games here, slow down. I just figured that out for myself, that, what am I doing? I'm not really into the N64. So I just sold it. So, yeah, if you get into a situation like that, you just got to get rid of things. Don't hoard. Do not hoard. Unless you really genuinely like it and you want to keep it. Because you could say there's, you know, there is an argument to why bother selling something if you're going to buy it back. That is a valid argument. But if you've got things that you don't want, if you're stocking up on systems and games that there's no nostalgia for, you're not really playing, you look at it and you think, well, why have I got that? Then those are danger signs. So that's that. So thank you very much, Dylan, for that question. The Football Channel HD, Matthew. Thank you, Matt. The Smiths, New Order and the Stone Roses were the biggest indie bands of the 80s, according to Matt, probably were. Who are your favourite 3 indie bands of the 90s? Now, it's funny you say that though, Matt, because the term indie has got a different meaning to what it had, to what it has now. These days, and for quite some time, probably the last sort of 20 years, maybe a little bit more, last 25 years, indie has come to resemble a particular sound of music, like jangly guitars and all that kind of stuff. But that's not what indie means, really. That's not the roots of it. So I don't know how to address your question, because if you mean indie bands in a traditional sense, or kind of a traditional sense, from like the early 90s, well, I've written down a few examples here. Some bands I mention quite regularly. Kingmaker. I used to love Kingmaker. I urge people to check out that band. They're like the very catchy kind of choruses and riffs. It's, if you like Britpop music, that jangly kind of guitars and catchy choruses, it's basically almost all of their songs, well, many of their songs were basically like that, but with more of a, less emphasis on Britpop, because that sound hadn't quite materialised. That was like, 94, 95. So it was still kind of indie rock, but really catchy, and very much a precursor to the Britpop stuff. So I'd say Kingmaker without question, Carter the Unstoppable Sex Machine, I just like saying that name. I mention them quite a lot. I absolutely loved those, still do, brilliant band. Teenage Fan Club, they were really good. The Wonder Stuff, the Inspiral Carpets, Ride with Andy Bell in it, not Andy Bell from Erasure, Andy Bell from Ride, who then joined Oasis and then left Oasis and has rejoined Ride. They've got a new record out, by the way. Check it out. The Levellers and early Suede and Verve stuff before they got really mainstream and Britpoppy. They were around for years. What do you call it? Blur's debut album came out in 1991. They were knocking around a long time before they got really, really popular. So So there's a number of bands, more than 3 I've just listed. But if you're talking kind of traditional indie, mainstream kind of stuff, obviously Oasis, obviously. They've got to be the biggest band of the 90s. They just have to be. I can't think of someone who was bigger, but that's just my opinion. I'd have to say Blur as well, and probably, I could name a lot of bands here, and I could probably change this depending on what day you asked. But I'm going to go with Pulp. I really like Pulp. But Pulp, again, Pulp are a band, I think they released their first album, I might have this wrong, but it's around about 1980, 80 or 1981. I remember being staggered. I think their His and Hers album came out in 1994. And I remember seeing it and buying it in a shop called Falcon Records. Or Falcon Records, however you want to pronounce it. I think it is Falcon, but I've just always said Falcon, so, you know, old habits and all that. And I remember looking at the back and thinking, oh, wow, this looks brilliant, I've got to buy it. Because I'd heard a few songs like Babies, I think was one song, and Lip Gloss. And as I was looking through in this shop, under the letter P, under the Pulp section, there was a load of other albums. And I was like, what? Where did these come? There was like another 6. I've never heard of this bloody band up until like 6 months ago. And I looked at the back, of course, and it had like, you know, 1986, 1984, 1982, 1981, whatever it was. And I was flabbergasted Pulp had been around that long. So yeah, formed in the late 70s. Can you believe it? Unbelievable. Maybe some people watching this are like, bloody hell, I didn't know that. But yeah, check it out. Because by the time Pulp became really big in the mid-90s, Jarvis Cocker was in his 30s at that point already. So yeah, they'd been around. They just hadn't really had the success, or at all, quite frankly. So yeah, Oasis, Blur, Pulp would be my choices. But if you mean the early stuff, then obviously I name-dropped a number there. So thank you, Matt. The next question is, will you dye your hair when it goes grey or white? What do you mean when? What do you mean when it goes grey or white? If, I think is what you meant to say. Now, I'll tell you what, speckles in the hair, absolutely grey, 100%, or white in some cases. And my granddad on my dad's side, he's got pretty much white hair, and it's always been that way. Well, not always, obviously that'd be weird. But my first memories of him, I think he's like, well, he must be 90 now, I think. Oddly enough, his birthday is on the same day as me. How nice is that? It's kind of pretty funny. He's obviously older than me, clearly. Double my age and then more. So, but my early memories of my granddad, I guess, would have been when he was in his sort of 50s. And, yeah, full-on white hair then and now. My dad, it's kind of a bit silvery, but with still, like mine, but definitely more silvery. Not same style, it's shorter as well, but, yeah, I'm expecting it to go white and silver without question. Without question, mate. So, what was the question again? Will I dye it? No, I won't. I don't think. If I do, well, you'll see it on YouTube down the line, but I don't expect me to do that. Who are your favourite WWF wrestlers back in the day? Yeah, well, it would have been the likes of Hulk Hogan, The Ultimate Warrior, Bret the Hitman Hart, and those are probably my favourites, but then you had the other ones, like the Legion of Doom. They weren't my favourites, but I remember them, so it's kind of nostalgic. The Bushwhackers, anyone remember those? You had Owen Hart, tragic, of course, what happened there. The British Bulldog, again, another one who sadly died. Many of them did, of course. Jake the Snake Roberts. Did he die too? I think he may have done. So many of them. The Undertaker. Yeah, the list goes on. I used to love that era. The early 90s, and I mean right, literally, 1990, 91, I used to buy the WWF official magazine in the UK. I don't know if it was like a UK publication or one which was imported over from the States. There'll be pictures on the front. I used to feel really embarrassed buying it. Not because it was wrestling, because usually, obviously, you've got a man, a topless man on the front with his pecs out. And I used to feel paranoid that is that man or that woman, whoever's serving me, are they going to think that I'm into that kind of thing? And are they not going to realise it's a wrestling magazine? I'm sure they probably did. I mean, the fact that I had wrestling on it may have been a bit of a giveaway. But the topless thing, it used to make me feel really paranoid. So sometimes what I used to do is if it had a really, to me, a really obvious kind of like gay tone to it, I didn't buy it because I felt paranoid. But if it was one where it wasn't as obvious, maybe you could see their costume and the colours, like the Ultimate Warrior and all that kind of stuff, and he had his mask on and all that kind of thing, I'd probably buy it. Or if it was Hulk Hogan, like a really well-known person. which is a ridiculous reason for not buying it, of course. But you can understand as a kid in my very early teens, and maybe I'd not even quite got into my teens at that point. So you can understand why I was a bit uncomfortable. Not so much buying it myself, but in terms of what other people thought. Because obviously I was into the wrestling. Everybody was around about my age. It was massive. Absolutely massive. So yeah, those were my kind of early kind of people I looked up to. And I remember having the game on my ST, just WrestleMania, I think it was called. Specifically remember buying it. I remember the day I bought it in WH Smith's. So I remember that. That very same day, I met my friend in there, one of my best friends called Rob. We bumped into each other. And he bought Jimmy White snooker on the Amiga. And it was kind of one of those, oh, what are you doing here? He was like, oh, buying this. And he was like, what are you doing here? Buying this. And then we went back to his house and we played on Jimmy White's, which was a really good game. So it's funny how you remember certain things. Again, it ties into the wrestling thing. So yeah, I used to watch it a little bit. I remember the arcade WrestleFest. I touched upon that in a recent vid, I think. I think it was called WrestleFest. That was really good. That really reminds me of going to the cinema, the UCI cinemas in Bournemouth, or in Poole, technically. Yeah, me and my friends going on that. I just loved it. Great memories. And then when it got to like the late 90s, so I'd say, yeah, the early 90s I was into it, and then I very quickly lost interest. So by 92 onwards, I don't even think I watched any of it, or if I did, hardly any. But then back in the late 90s, say 97, 98, 99, and maybe at the turn of the millennium, I did watch it again a little bit, but only because it was on really late at night on Sky Sports. And if I was going to bed, it would be something I'd probably go to sleep to it. I'd put the timer on the telly and I'd watch it. So we're talking the likes of Stone Cold Steve Austin, Mick Foley, The Rock, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Chyna, sadly another one who passed away. Bloody hell. So many of them, and it's just crazy. So yeah, I kind of got into it a little bit. Kane, The Undertaker still knocking around. Hulk Hogan, I think, went away and then came back. And yeah, there was another one, what was his name? With the long hair. Obviously, a lot of them do have long hair. Blonde, what's his name? Oh, I can't remember. The name's got the Edge or something like that. It's got the Edge. Can't remember. But yeah, and several other tag teams. Some of them were good, some of them were rubbish. I kind of got into it a little bit around about that era, but not to the point where I was buying magazines and knowing enough to talk about it with friends and stuff, but just in terms of watching it a little bit. So, but yeah, so back in the day is when I loved it. Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Bret the Hitman Hart, those are the main ones that I love. So thank you, Matt, for those questions. The next question is from Lazarus. Lazarus. If you started to lose your hair, would you shave your head, have a comb over, or have a hair transplant? Well, obviously, Matt's already decided that my hair's gonna be go grey or silver, or white or silver. So it makes your question somewhat redundant, mate. But look how dark it's getting as well. Bloody hell! At least it is one at the camera I'm looking. But to answer the question, hypothetically speaking, I think anyone in that situation, you've just got to shave, haven't you? You really, the comb over is ridiculous. If you walk into a room and you haven't got hair, or not a lot of it, to the point where it's pretty much shaved, then no one's really going to bat an eyelid. Not really. They may instantly initially notice it, but then you quickly forget it. But if you've got a comb over, that's bad. You're going to notice that every time, and people are going to take the piss out of you. They really are. So, especially if it's a real obvious one, like, the 70s, like Bobby Charlton and some other footballers. It was horrific. You're embarrassed for them, even now, 30-odd years later, 40 years later. It's obscene how and why people did and do that. So no, I definitely wouldn't do that. The hair transplant, now if it didn't hurt, and I don't think it would because of like laser surgery and all the rest of it, and if it was cheap, I think that's something that may be worth considering. But it's so vain, isn't it? It really is. I mean, would you want to go through that hassle? And then before you do it, and I'm just taking an educated guess because I've seen celebs do this, don't they have the markings that they've got to have on their head before they actually get it done? So you've got to walk around in public for like a month or more. So people will be like, what the hell are those scars on your head? And then you've got to tell people, oh, the hair transplant. So is it worth that attention? But if it makes you feel good and makes you feel confident, then I guess it's an each to their own, isn't it? But I wouldn't really think I'd be doing that. The comb over, though, absolutely forget it. That wouldn't be happening. So I think most people would probably go with just the shave, as close, as short a haircut as you could manage. I think is the best thing to do. Thank you very much. Next questions are from Clay Graphic 1. Thank you, Clayton. What artist or band alive today would you most want to see live? I think the thing is with modern music, there's a lot of bands that I really like, but there's nobody who I can immediately think of who is so amazing that I've not seen before, who are doing the rounds, that I really want to see. And especially new bands. There's some good ones, but ones that I really want to see, that I'd go out of my way to see, and probably not too many. So I'm going to have to go a little bit old school and say the Rolling Stones. Even though they're knocking on big time, they're still a big attraction, and it would be nice to say that I saw them. I remember my mum went to see them in the late 80s at Wembley with a couple of friends of hers, and even by that time it was like, oh, bloody hell, they're knocking on a bit. And that was the late 80s, and they're still doing it now. In the late teens? What's this era kind of called? The late millennial teens? I don't even know what the term's called for this this era we're in. But they're still good, and Mick Jagger can, you know, he can still strut his stuff. If you look at him on the stage, he's very energetic. So that's what I'd say. And maybe a modern band, maybe something like Blur. I've really got back into Blur. It's not like I've just got into them for the first time. I was into them in like the early mid-90s, of course, massively. But having had a spell away from them, I've really got back into them over the course of the last few weeks. Listened to a lot of stuff, and it's just really good. I'd like to see them again. So that's that. Now, question number 2. What artist or band, dead or no longer together, would you most like to see? I think you've got to say the Beatles. For me, the Beatles are the biggest and probably best band of all time. I always find it weird when people say they're not. It almost makes me feel as if they're just saying that just to try and be edgy. Oh, look at us, we're being well hard. You know, we're not putting the Beatles at the top of our list. We're putting Elvis there, or we're putting the Stones, or we're putting Radiohead, or something stupid like that. The Beatles are quite clearly the biggest band of all time. But don't get me wrong, I'm not like a fanboy or anything. Their early stuff, whilst it's quite catchy and puts you in a good mood, and, you know, like I Want to Hold Your Hand and all that kind of stuff, it's not my thing. I love I say love, I'm not massively into it, but I like the Beatles from like the mid-60s up into the, 1970, when they split up. That's my kind of thing, when it got a bit heavy, when it got a bit kind of out there with the drugs and experimentation. I love all that kind of stuff. The clean-cut image of the early to mid-60s, not really my thing, not really. I don't mind it, but it's not really my era. But it would have been amazing to see the Beatles. My mother-in-law saw the Beatles in California back in, probably would have been, I guess, the mid-60s, early mid-60s. That era that I'm probably not too fond of, but it would have been great seeing them. So, yeah, I've asked her to recite that story a few times. I just find it fascinating. Like, she actually saw the Beatles. It's unbelievable. She would have been young at the time, of course, probably still in her teens. Would have been in her teens. But either way, that would have been cool to see them. So I'd like to see the Beatles, or would have liked to have seen them, I guess. George Michael, massive fan of George Michael. What a shame when he passed away. That was so sad. I thought it was anyway. One of my favourite musicians. It's terrible. Such a nice guy. I didn't know him personally. But all the stories that came out after he passed away of donating thousands, hundreds of thousands to unknown causes, charities, and donating anonymously. Just seemed a really nice guy. He was someone who didn't want the fame, but kind of did. He wanted the fame, but he didn't want the attention. He wanted the money, but he didn't want people knocking on his door and asking for autographs and being in the public eye. It's quite sad, really. But as an artist, amazing, absolutely amazing. So that would have been good. Nirvana. Now, if anyone watched a vlog of mine from a couple back, maybe, I lied about seeing Nirvana at the Reading Festival in 1992. I'm not going to tell the story again. Check it out. It's a brief one. But they would have been good to have seen. The Sex Pistols, The Jam, bands like that. The Who t-shirt. The Smiths, Matt mentioned them before. New Order. Loads. I could go on, Dylan. There's a lot of Clayton. Sorry. There's a load of bands I would love to have seen. Some who obviously are no longer together, and some who are. It's funny that I mentioned New Order though, because they technically are still together, but like Peter Hook left, so is it really New Order? Maybe still isn't, but it kind of is. It's a band with a lot of turmoil that they've had, even since Joy Division, of course, for obvious reasons. with what happened there. So it's a band which have always had that kind of anger, and not so much anger, but they've always had problems. But the funny thing with New Order, even though they're technically still going, is that we went to see Radiohead in California at the Berkeley Theatre. I made a video for it last year, I think, last May time. Now, the week after, New Order were playing. So maybe we should have went along. We didn't, but story for another day. But seeing New Order when it was the proper, all the full members would have been my thing. Also, might get a laugh out of a few people, I would really have liked to have seen Status Quo. I had tickets to see Status Quo in about 2007 at Bournemouth, the Winter Gardens, I think it was. And my wife got the flu. So we, well, she wasn't my wife then, fiance, I guess. That sounds weird saying that. But yeah, so we didn't go in the end. Instead, I gave them to my mum, and my mum went instead, and the tickets were used. But that would have been nice. I like Status Quo. Sue me. You know, I'm not an expert on all their songs, but I do quite like them. It's pub rock, isn't it? But it's good. I quite like it in a cheesy way. So there we go. There's that. Next question, last question from Clayton is: you're hosting a dinner party and can invite 5 people. Anybody, dead or alive. Who would it be and why? Also, what starter, main and dessert would you serve? Well, the food would be very much what I'm feeling at the heat of the moment and the here and now. So I'll come to that in a second, and it'll just be whatever springs to mind. So it could be something totally random. But I did write down a few names of people who I'm going to take, because off the top of my head, at the spur of the moment, I'd probably struggle to name them. So I've gone with Liam Gallagher. I mean, that should be self-explanatory. What a great dinner companion that would be, just for the laughs, just for the drama. It would be great. We could talk about Oasis, we could talk about City, talk about football, talk about life. It would just be brilliant. And he could maybe cause a bit of trouble, a bit of drama, and that would be funny to watch. So Liam Gallagher there. I was going to say Noel Gallagher as well, but no, they'd definitely clash, wouldn't they? So maybe if I had like a cup of tea in the evening, maybe that's a question for another day, like a cup of tea with a scone. Noel Gallagher would be one of them. So Liam would be there. He'd be number 1. I've gone, bizarrely, with Eric Cantona. I know, obviously United, but he's just such a fascinating person. And obviously he was a great footballer, that's quite clear. But he'd just be really interesting to talk to. I find him interesting. I watched a video quite recently, and I liked it. Like, it probably showed up on my YouTube feed list. People are probably going, why is he liking a load of United vids? Because there's a few of them I liked. One of them was the Cantona one. I just found it a really interesting interview. I can't remember who did the interview, actually. It may have been... Oh, it wasn't Gary Lineker, was it? No, I can't remember. But anyway, so I watched that. And so, yeah, he'd be there. I nearly said Mario Balotelli, because he's such a character. He's mad. He really is. Some crazy stories when he was at City. Some absolutely crazy ones. But I've gone with Cantona. You know, let's face it, Eric Cantona is a great footballer. So there's 2. How's this one? You will not be expecting this one. Macaulay Culkin. Hellraiser. Really is. I nearly went with Oliver Reed. Proper Hellraiser, that would have been. Obviously dead, but you did say I'm allowed dead people. Maybe Oliver Reed would be a good one. Well, if Oliver Reed couldn't turn up, because he'd be a good one, then maybe Macaulay Culkin. Maybe that would be a good one. I saw an interview the other day. I think it was, is he called Jimmy Fallon? I'm not really particularly familiar. I've seen him a few times. I think that's his name, though. And he came across quite nice, but almost shy and nervous. He was talking continuously, trying to get he just sounded hyper. He sounded hyper and trying to get some laughs from the audience, which he usually got. But it just seemed a little bit like he was nervous. Obviously, he's been out of the public eye, really, for many, many years. But he seems like a nice guy. I was going to say a nice kid, but I think he's like 37, 38 now. You forget that, don't you? You just think he's like, 10, 11, 12-year-old Kevin McAllister from Home Alone. So, but he seems a nice guy, and it would be nice to see him kind of get back into movies and really, maybe when he gets into his 40s, kind of redeem himself a little bit and become a big actor. I'd really like a really big director on a really big blockbusting movie to give him a role. I'd like that. I don't know why I feel he deserves it. I guess I just do. Because he's part of my youth with Home Alone. Maybe that's what it is. So, but he just seems an interesting, very chilled out, normal guy. Very kind of anti The Hollywood stuff. He just seemed normal. Maybe that's why he went wrong and it kind of went tits up in his life, because he's just like you and me, really, albeit with the money. But he just kind of blew it, or most of it. He's still rich. Don't feel too sorry for him. Richie Rich, you could say. There's one for you. So, yeah, Macaulay Culkin. If Oliver Reed couldn't turn up. Or maybe I could cheat and have an extra one. Although I'm cheating again in a little bit, Clay. So, if it was all right by you, I might have 7. Maybe more. I've just thought of Pamela Anderson, for obvious reasons. But the other 2 or 3 I'm going to go with. Adele. I just think Adele, she's really fascinating, the singer. I don't mind her stuff. I'm not massively into it. But I just like her as a person. She's got a filthy mouth on her. She's got a really dirty laugh. And again, just seems like me, seems like you, seems like an ordinary person. Someone who can really chill out with. Someone who doesn't take the celeb thing to heart. I'm sure she's a bit of a diva at times, but just seems like, you know, that local girl made big kind of thing. And I like that. I quite like her, to be honest. So I'd say Adele. And then the other one, it's 1, but it's kind of 2, because they come as a couple. It's Philip Schofield and Holly, is it Willoughby? Willoughby, I think. I just like them. I don't know what else to say. Maybe I'm getting soft in my older age, you know. I like how they come across. Now, obviously, I'm in America, so I don't get to watch their stuff on the telly. This morning, isn't it? Or has it changed its name? I don't even know. But of course, I see clips on YouTube, Twitter. They're always making the news for silly stuff that they've said or done, or laughing and finding things funny. And it just seems really chilled out and nice in an era where there's so much nonsense and negativity in the world. And it's something nice to have on, isn't it? In the morning, at lunchtime, whenever it is. Or to watch it any time of the day. They just strike me as just nice. So I like them. So I think they'd be nice and pleasant to have at a dinner. And they'd laugh. And I'd laugh. And we'd all laugh. So it would be good. I'd like to see that. And of course, Philip Schofield, from the days back of Going Live, and was he on Live and Kicking as well? He was certainly going live with Emma Forbes. Oh, bloody hell, Emma Forbes. Teenage crush there. Jesus. And Gordon the Gopher, whilst he wasn't a teenage crush of mine, or was it? Wasn't. Of course, I remember him from my youth. So another reason for the Philip Schofield thing. And Philip Schofield, of course, did Jason, the Technicolor Dreamcoat. I remember that. Although I associate that more with Jason Donovan. So, but yeah, so there we are. Liam Gallagher, Eric Cantona, Macaulay Culkin, Adele, Philip Schofield, along with Holly Willoughby, or Willoughby. And maybe, if I was allowed to cheat and have an extra couple on the list, Pamela Anderson. Again, obvious reasons. And because of her personality, that is. And although actually she does seem quite friendly, to be fair, and quite normal to a degree. Who's the other one? Oliver Reed, proper Hellraiser, Jesus. He's the only one I think who's dead on that list. So everyone else very much alive. Now, in regards to the other question, what would we have for a starter? Soup. Let's have soup. It's the first thing that springs to mind. Maybe sausage soup with obviously vegetables in there, potato, some carrots, quite a lot of broth because you don't want it too dry. But yeah, the sausage to add a bit of flavour, maybe a little bit of pepper in there, some tomato. Not too much though, because like I say, you don't want it to be heavy. I would prefer it to be more broth than content. Not that I'm cooking, I have to get someone to do it. Maybe you're cooking, Clayton, you didn't say. So, the main, what's your for main? Fish and chips. Fish and chips, talking earlier on about the fish and chip shops outside the Etihad and Old Trafford. It's on the brain. We'll go with fish and chips. Maybe, not maybe, the option, I'd definitely take it, of having a battered sausage or two. It's not a euphemism. Oh, God, that would be amazing. Yeah, salt and vinegar. Lots of salt and vinegar. But that would be optional. It would be there if you wanted it. And they'd be served, obviously, on the plastic kind of, almost polystyrene or whatever they are, kind of trays. Maybe even in actual newspaper. Maybe we'll do that. It's up to you, Clay. Obviously, like I say, you're cooking, so you're doing it. So probably that. And then for a dessert, maybe it's best we have like a few choices, because maybe not everyone likes the same stuff. So maybe some choices of Angel Delight. There's a proper 80s one, like the whipped kind of cream thing. Strawberry would be my preference. And what else? So yeah, Angel Delight. How about ice cream, mint flavour, with the chocolate chips, obviously. Lemon meringue pie can be on the list. That's a good one. And maybe a strawberry cheesecake as well. And maybe even a lemon slice, with, you know, with the icing around. Oh, bloody hell, I'm starving now. I'm supposed to be on a diet. Not a proper diet, of course. That'll never happen. A moderation diet. But I tell you what, if that dinner was taking place now, Clay, oh, man alive. That'd be amazing. I'd love it. So there we go. So thank you very much, Clayton, for your questions. Dan 90s, thank you, Dan. I think this is the first time you've asked me questions, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much. If you had a time machine, I wish I did, and could go back into your body and relive 1 moment maximum. 1 moment maximum? Oh, sorry, 1 moment maximum of an hour from the 90s, what would it be? Oh, I was wondering, how am I going to tackle this topic? Because would it be an hour of like a gig I went to or a football game I went to? But instead, what I'm going to say, it's nice, but it's a little bit sad in a way, but I'm just going to say any hour, any at all, from like the early 90s-ish, around about that era, from when me and my friends used to play football after work. We'd go up to the park. I'll put a picture of it, actually. Someone sent me a video of it on YouTube, so maybe I'll put that on there, if I can figure out a way of doing it. It's a quite small park, but we used to play on there. It was we all lived in the same kind of area. And so yeah, take an hour, and that hour would comprise maybe, I don't know, coming home from school, so I'd experience that again, getting home, going into my house, and that kind of thing, and then my friends knocking on the door and us taking the ball and the football, and they'd have footballs as well. We always had a spare 1 or 2 just in case. And then walking up to the park, it took 2 minutes best, and then maybe play for like 45 minutes or something. And then the last 15 minutes of this hour, which you've allowed me to time travel back to, I'd experience, again, going back into my house, going upstairs, or going into every room just to, you know, absorb it all, but going upstairs and sticking on my Atari ST and playing that for the last few minutes. That'd be amazing. I'd love to do that. Really would. So that's what I'm going to go with. Just basically, I'd spend the hour chilling out with predominantly my friends. Notice that my family don't get a mention. I'd probably see them in the house. But yeah, my friends playing football and then playing on the ST and just experiencing that again. Oh, it was magic. I love that. I love the early 90s. It's just incredible. Really do. Don't get me wrong. I'm a very nostalgic person. That should be pretty obvious. But I'm a very modern guy too. I really am. Maybe I don't get that across enough. Very much a modern guy. And I'm really excited about the future. So I'm not completely in the past. It's just that I really do love the past more than most people. I love it. So I'd say that. Question number 2. What is a smell that brings back the nostalgia of youth? And then in brackets, dance book, Versace Blue Jeans, Lynx Java. Funny you mentioned Versace Blue Jeans. I've got it. I'm not going to show it on this vid. But it's even funnier you've asked the question. Because I promise you, Dan, I'm not even making this up. About a year ago, I thought, you know, it would be a really cool idea to make a video about certain fragrances that I've got and ones which are nostalgic. And so I might do that now, so thanks for the reminder. I'm not going to put a time limit on it because I'm the master of saying I'm going to do it and I can't be asked. But I'll do it eventually, maybe within the next month or so. And if I haven't done it, give me a reminder. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll just like show up a fragrance and I'll talk about like some nostalgia, put a few pictures up and all that kind of stuff. But so as a result, I'm not going to like spoil that video, but I will use one example. Well, I was going to say 2, but you've said youth. So the other ones, I was late teens. So I'm going to go earlier back to like the sort of early 90s again. And I'm not going to elaborate on the story. I'll save it for that particular vid. But the fragrance I'm going to use and talk about is Davidoff Cool Water, if you can see that. A really popular one, very popular in the late 80s and kind of early 90s. And I think over recent times, it's kind of made a bit of a resurgence. And I love it. Now, I've not smelt this for a couple of years, well, maybe about a year or so. But I'm going to take the cap off in a minute. And I bet you any money, it'll take me straight back to that time. But before I do, again, I'm briefly going to talk about it because it's a stupid story. But it'll just give you a taste of what it was about, or a sniff as to what it's about. I'll elaborate when I make the standalone designated vid. But basically, this fragrance specifically reminds me of a time where I stole it from somebody's house. Terrible, I know. And I also, not just did I steal this from this guy's house, a policeman, no less, but I also stole from the very same person's house on the very same night about 3 hardcore pornography videos. I know it really does deserve an explanation, that vid, and or that story, and it will in the video when I make it. But whenever I smell Davidoff, it takes me back to that time. My dad found out, by the way, and went mental, and I got a bollocking, and I had to take it back to him. The shame. Oh my God, I had to take it back to the guy I stole it from. And my dad's a policeman as well, so he was having none of it. And it was one of his friends. But again, I'll elaborate on that story in the future. It's quite a funny one. But yeah, whenever I smell it, it takes me back to that time of being at his house and watching pornographic movies. Obviously, I was on my own. No one else was watching them with me. We were staying there, was a long story. And one night, oh God. And so it takes me back to that time. And also, when I smell it, it also takes me back to my old house as well, because obviously I had those videos and I had this with me because I stole it. So I'm just going to smell it now. This will mean nothing to you, but I bet you it takes me back. So I've taken the cap off. Oh, man. Yeah, unbelievable. It takes me back to being a thief in 1990. Tell you what, I'm addicted to this. Oh, unbelievable. Really nice. Here you go. Have a sniff of that. What do you reckon? Yeah? Does it take you back to 1993 and pornographic videos? I remember one of the titles was called Raw Sex. Cringeworthy, isn't it? That was the title of the vid. And another one was called Candy Goes to Hollywood. Don't Google it if you're at your parents' house. But if you're not, Candy Goes to Hollywood, porno, Google it. It's hardcore, so if you're not into that kind of stuff, sorry for offending you, but it happened. And it was, that Candy Goes to Hollywood, I feel dirty saying it. I didn't make the vid. I stole it, but I was a teenager. Come on, you probably did the same. Candy Goes to Hollywood was basically a full-on proper, like late 70s, early 80s, a proper pornographic movie where they're acting and everything. It's just like it's like a movie, but with the hardcore stuff that you wouldn't see at your local Odeon or whatever's there these days. And I was just amazed at the fact that for a lot of the movie they're talking, they're acting. It's like, this is ridiculous. Proper full-on old school stuff. Not that I'm an expert on pornography. Thank you very much, Dan, for making me say that story. But so yeah, I'd say that. But there's many other examples I can give, which I will in a future vid. I'm not sure the stories get as spectacular as that one, but we'll see. Thank you, Dan, for those questions. Damo, thank you for this one. If you could place an avatar of yourself into a game, adding a new or replacing an existing character, which game, and if applicable character, would it be? Tongue twister there. So if I could just be in a game, basically. I don't know if I'd want to replace the main character. I was going to say Uncharted. I mean, obviously, you can all imagine. If I was going to be in Uncharted, I would be Nathan Drake. It's pretty obvious, right? You know that, clearly. But no, I wouldn't replace him. But if that was a question, if I had to replace him, maybe I'll choose that then. But maybe if I could add a character, that was part of your question, wasn't it? Yeah, adding a new character. Maybe in the Uncharted universe, as one of Nathan Drake's friends, or his son, or or his brother. I know he's got a brother in the game, but I'd be his cool brother, obviously. And yeah, just helping him out, going out on all these massive adventures with Chloe and co. I just think it would be amazing. I'd love to do that in the game world. Obviously, it's not real. So yeah, let's just go with Uncharted. Why not? Short, simple answer to that. So thank you, Damo, for that. And then the last 4 questions are from Pete Snestastic, we talked about before. Sold his retro collection. I hope you stick to it, Pete. Don't make the mistakes of old. As I said in one of the comment, or in the comment that I left on your vid, it's best now to make this decision at the start of your 40s. It's best to make this decision of getting rid of all that rather than 10 years from now. Because 10 years, mate, it's going to go by like that. Time flies. Because if you are still doing this in your 50s, you'll regret it. You're doing it now. You're still young enough. You're still young enough. It's not too late to change and to change your life around completely. You're still young enough. Remember that. You've got time. So anyway, the first question, why are you so, capital letters, pro digital games? I just like them. They're convenient. Don't get me wrong. I do digital game in this era. I've downloaded a lot. I've paid for a lot. I've bought a lot of full price games for my PlayStation 4. And then a stack of games that are all sorts of prices, from like $1 upwards, really. Did I just say dollar? Did I go American there? Sound like I did. Hope not. Dollar. Let's get that. I've been here 10 years. Give me a break. So, yeah, I've just bought a lot. of digital games. I find them convenient. I know a lot of people will say, well, how hard is it to go to your shelf, take a game off, take the disc out, close that. I'm intentionally making it seem as if it's a lot of work. Close the tray, get the disc, put it in the tray, wait for it to load. How hard is that? Well, it's not hard, of course, but it's just more, it's adding time. It's time consuming, and I can't be bothered with it. But the reason why I've not fully switched to digital gaming this generation, I may do it come the next generation. We'll have to wait and see. But the reason is basically because the downloads are so big and they take a long time. So it is easier, in a way, contradiction, I guess, to get the disc and to play it that way. But I don't mind for some games buying them digitally. Full price ones. What have I bought? Battlefield 1, Star Wars Battlefront 2, Call of Duty World at War, No Man's Sky. There's others. I've bought them full price, digital downloads. I'm not going to get a penny back for those. And to some people, that's a big deal. I don't care. So what? Here's the thing as well with digital pricing. And this is an example off the top of my head, so it might not be the best one to use. But let's just say I buy a game. Let's not use the $60 example, because I agree, I'm not getting anything back for that, because there's no resale value on digital games. But let's just say you buy, okay, you as a fan of, whether it's Pete or anyone, as a fan of pro physical games, you buy a physical game for, let's just say, 15 quid. What you've done is you've waited for it to come down in price, which they always do these days, and you didn't want to pay 50. There was no way you were paying 50 for it. 50 quid. Is that the retail these days, by the way, in the UK? Is it $49.99 or is it $39.99? I have no idea. It's been a decade. I'm out of touch. But let's just say, either way, you wait for it to come down to 15 quid. When it comes down to 15 quid, you're like, what? I'm getting it. Bargain. I'll buy it for 50. I wouldn't at 40 or 50. So you buy that game, right, for £15. Now, let's say you play the game, you finish it, you have fun with it, or you thought it was rubbish. Either way, it comes to a time where you want to sell that game. Now, realistically, what are you going to get back for that? A game that was worth 15 quid when you bought it. Realistically, what are you going to get for it if you sell it? Because a lot of people make a big deal. A lot of people who are anti-digital make a big deal about getting money back and resale values. Realistically, you're going to get about, what, a fiver? Really? That's about fair, isn't it, really, to be fair? So let's say you get a fiver back for it. So fine, you've got a fiver back, good, but you've lost 10 quid. You've lost 10 quid and you've not got the game. Now, let's say I wait for a digital sale, all right? Now, let's say I pay $10 for it. Now, I'm not getting any money back for it, right? So you could say that's a $10 loss, but I've got the game. Well, you haven't got the game. So we've both had the same financial loss of, say, $10 or 10 quid, but I've now got the game. It is digital, but I have and you haven't. So I'm winning. You've lost out. So, like I said, I've used that as an argument which caters towards my arguments, because there isn't one for the full price games I mentioned, like Battlefront 2 and Cold World at War, No Man's Sky. I paid $60 for them, and I'm stuck with those games now, but I'm fine. It doesn't bother me. I've played them quite a bit, and I love the convenience of just putting your PlayStation on, and they're there at the options menu. You don't have to get up, you just press one bloody button, and the game's starting. It's so convenient. But it's one of those things where I don't think you realise, even though it sounds obviously convenient, I don't think you realise how convenient it is until you experience it, really, honestly. So what I'd recommend to someone is try downloading some of the indie titles, the budget titles, the cheap ones, if you're a little bit on the fence, and you'll see how easy it is. Also, with a lot of the cheap titles that didn't get a proper release, other than those limited run game releases, which can cost hundreds of dollars or pounds, those games are really cheap online. So therefore, you've got to ask yourself the question, do you want to potentially pay 100 quid or more for a really cheap budget game that was physically released in limited numbers? Or do you want to download it for like 3 quid? Why do you want the box for when the price gulf is so much bigger? I don't get it. Well, I mean, I do get it, to be fair, because I've been there with the whole collecting thing, so I do get it. But I'm just saying, digital gaming is brilliant. A lot of people slag it off. A lot of people will be watching this disagreeing with me, and that's fine, we're all different, but digital gaming is brilliant for me. I really like it. Next generation, I'm probably going to go full on digital, but time will tell. This generation, I'm going back and forth, simply because of the size. I picked up an Xbox game the other day, and I bought it physically, because it was a big game to download, and I wasn't sure on it. I thought, what if I don't like it? So I bought it physically. It'll be in the pickup vid if I make it in a week or so. So don't think I'm being a hypocrite. I buy physical games still, but I'm just saying I'm absolutely happy to consider the digital option. Absolutely on board. 100% on board. And what also makes me laugh, the last thing I'll say about digital gaming here, is of all the people who, and I'm not having a go, it's your opinion and it's fine, I understand. I get it, the physical thing on your shelf, an inanimate, physical, tangible object, holding on to it, I totally get it, 100%. But most of those people who do not like digital games and who are very critical of digital games, what do? They watch Netflix, they download movies, they listen to Spotify, and that's okay. That's fine. I don't think sometimes they quite realise the hypocrisy there, but it's kind of funny. But I'm not having a go in the slightest because I understand it. But I just think it's that thing, isn't it, of we all know that we're being hypocritical when it comes to games, and oh no, it can't be digital. Oh, but by the way, I'm going to watch Netflix tonight. You know, you're not going to buy the DVD. No point. It's on Netflix. Fair enough. You know, it's double standards. So yeah, long story short, mate, I'm so pro-digital because it's convenient. Also, I think it's the future, quite frankly. It should be obvious. Gaming companies, developers, they're losing money with all the print works. Speaking of print works, by the way, that's a pub in Manchester for, who was it earlier on? Was it Aaron? Check that out. That's in the city centre. So for paying for all the print works in, getting the boxes done and all that kind of stuff and the artwork, I just think, companies want to go digital. They'll earn more money. The only thing I want to see, and I'm not going to win any prizes for saying this, I want to see the price of digital games come down. Paying $60 for me is very, very unfair. I'd like to see them come down to maybe $40. And then obviously there can be future sales where it comes down even more. If they sort the pricing out, I think more people will come on board. So I think with a lot of people, when they think about it, their main beef isn't necessarily having a physical game on their shelf, although for some it will be a big deal breaker, I get that. But I think for most people it's the pricing. If the pricing came down, those people would probably change their opinions. Pete, I've said this to you, mate, I'll say it to you on video. I 100% guarantee some stage in the future you will turn around to gaming, digital gaming, to digital gaming, 100%. It will happen because you'll have to. You'll have no choice. It'll either be you're all in or you're all out. And if you're going to be all out just because it's a digital download, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. What's the point of that? You could be missing out on an amazing experience just because you don't get a box. Really? I don't know. I guess I'm just... it's that thing, isn't it? Like I said, I'm a nostalgic person, but again, I'm proving I'm a very modern guy as well. I do move with the times, but I just also retain a lot of the past as well. Question number 2 from Pete. Why do you think some people have such extreme, sometimes violent reactions to people or communities that they do not understand or have knowledge of? Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it, Pete, that when people do that? It's a shame you've got to be so critical and so in your face. It's one thing having an opinion, it's another just being offensive. Why be offensive to someone? If all you've got to say is something offensive, don't say it at all. You know, if you're surrounded by people, then just don't surround yourself with those people. Don't associate yourself with those. If you're subscribed to channels who you don't like what they say, don't watch their stuff. Just don't watch it. Don't go onto a video just to be negative and to make them feel bad or annoyed because you do. Just avoid people. Surround yourself with people who are like yourself, but in a bit of a contradiction to that. Open your minds. You know, just because you wouldn't do something, it doesn't mean to say that it's wrong. And it doesn't mean to say that you have to do it because you don't do it. You don't have to agree with something. It may not be for you, but you don't have to slag everyone off for doing it. You can have an opinion, of course, but I think when it gets really personal, it's unnecessary. I just think it comes down to a lack of education, Pete. And of course, we're all different. We're all different. Some people have different ways of expressing themselves. And also on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, you can read too much maybe into certain things that people say because you can't hear their tone. You can just read their tone, and that's very difficult to do. So you can't always tell when someone's being sarcastic or saying something for a cheap laugh. It is hard to distinguish at times. So, yeah, I'd say it just ultimately comes down to a lack of education. It's just a shame. People should be able to be what they want to be, whatever that is. I don't specifically know what you're referring to. I've kind of got an idea, having the questions on the last vid, for example. But yeah, I just it's kind of silly people are like that, and it is a shame. But what can you do? Who are your top 3 women in music? Oh, I didn't do any like research or anything on this, mate. So I'm gonna have to do this off the top of my head. This is a bit of a faux pas on my part. Top 3 women in music. Well, I did mention Adele before, didn't I? So maybe I can cheat and mention her. But it's not so much for the music. I just quite like her as a person. Maybe Madonna. I've always admired Madonna. Obviously, back in the day, she was hot as well. Bloody hell. That late 80s and early 90s stuff. Again, my kind of childhood sort of era. So, oh, Christ. With the short hair. Bloody hell. That was very good. Very good look. So maybe that. In recent years, I'm not really into her when it comes to music and stuff. I really not. But she's an icon without question. And another woman off the top of my head. Well, if we're going nostalgia, I'd probably say something like Betty Boo, Alison Clarkson. Again, teenage crush. Lisa Stansfield. There's another one. So you've got 4. Again, if someone asks me to name 3, you're going to get 4 or more. I can't ever answer the question. I've always got to bend the rules a little bit. So I'd say that without really thinking too much on it, Pete, without doing a lot of homework. Well, without doing any. I'd say those are my top 3 women in music. I can't think off the top. Obviously, there's millions out there. There's bands that I like that are fronted by females, but I wouldn't say I like them enough to put them at number 1 or anything, or in the top 3. So yeah, we'll go with the ones that I listed. And then last but not least, are you still keeping up with UK politics? If so, what do you think of the current state of play with the main 3 parties, Brexit, etc.? Well, you say 3 main parties. I think you mean 2. I don't think there's 3 main parties in the UK anymore. If I presume you're talking about the Liberal Democrats. I mean, it's oh no. I agree with a lot of what they say, but I'd never vote. But I wouldn't say ever vote for them. It's a waste of vote for me. Yeah, technically, I guess they are the 3rd main party, but yeah, they're not going to get elected. So anytime soon, anyway. So yeah, I do keep up to speed with politics. It is a hobby and interest of mine. I do watch it a lot. I do watch a lot of the Prime Minister's Questions. I know a lot of people don't like it. I love it. I think it's amazing. People slag it off because it's popular too, and people say it's a waste of time. I don't think it's a waste of time. It's great entertainment. You've probably not watched it enough if you think it's rubbish. Well, I like it anyway, so what can I say? Yeah, I watch Newsnight and Question Time, and I do all that stuff. There's a number of political channels I'm subscribed to. There's Owen Jones. He's very, very left-wing. I'm not very left-wing. I'm kind of centre-left, I think, really. On some things, centre-right. It depends what it is. But generally centre-left. But he's very left. I don't agree with everything he says, but I agree with quite a few things. He just comes across as a nice guy, so I like listening to him. There's a guy I'm subscribed to on YouTube called Captain Switzerland. Young guy, only in his early to mid-20s. I don't interact or anything. I just watch it every now and again. And I like watching his stuff. So yeah, I keep up to speed, Pete, with that. And of course I watch YouTube and, the main BBC News and all that kind of stuff. The clips that they put on YouTube and Twitter, etc. Oddly enough, I don't really follow American politics. I find it boring. I know you said a while ago you find it interesting. You prefer US politics, I think you said. For me, US politics is just it's mind blown. It's just too much drama and stuff. Like there isn't enough drama in UK politics. But no, I'm very much a parliamentarian, all that kind of, that's my thing. I like UK politics. Now, specifically regarding Brexit, in all honesty, I am bored to the back teeth. Bored to the front teeth. Just bored of it. Full stop, to be honest. It's in the news all the time. Every time I look on like the BBC website, every time I listen to like online, like LBC radio or Talk Sport or Talk Radio or a BBC radio iPlayer or whatever you call it, it's 99% of the time it's the latest in Brexit. Listen, just get on with it. Whether you agree with it, whether you don't, it shouldn't matter. Just because, I say annoys me, I don't lose any sleep over it, but you obviously had a majority. Not the majority of the country, because not everybody voted, but the majority of people who could be bothered to vote, i.e. the most important people. Because if you can't be bothered to vote, well, that's ridiculous. And the majority voted to leave. Now, I don't personally want to see the hardest of hardest Brexits for many reasons, but the decision has been made, the public has spoken, it is a democracy, It has to be done. So any talk of overturning it, in my opinion, is ridiculous and embarrassing for democracy. It's embarrassing because where do you draw the line? What happens when we have another referendum in the future? What happens if a Prime Minister gets in that the majority voted for that may be the minority, even if it's quite a close call, technically still a minority? What if they don't want them? Well, let's run it again. Let's not have them become Prime Minister. You've got to have that structure of democracy in place where you have these rules and then, you know, the winner takes all, essentially. That's the way it is. So Brexit has got to take place. I don't personally, like I say, want to see the hardest of hardest ones, but it simply has to take place. But I'm bored of it. I'm bored to the back teeth. Here's the thing, and front teeth, like I say. Bored full stop. Here's the thing with Brexit, what everybody in the UK is going to figure out next year. Here's the big rude awakening for everybody, whether you're a leaver, whether you're a remainer. Okay, the next morning, after the UK officially leaves the EU and Brexit has happened, the next morning you wake up, as a car goes by, did you hear that, or truck? Obnoxious beyond belief. The next morning you wake up, what's going to happen? The same as per usual. The sun will be shining, or it'll be raining, obviously, UK stereotype. You're going to go to work. You're going to put the telly on. You're going to put the radio on. You're going to stick the kettle on. You're going to have a cup of tea. You're going to put your PlayStation on, or your Amiga, or whatever it is. Life is going to go on. Nothing is going to change whatsoever. Immigrants will continue to come to the United Kingdom, and quite rightly, obviously, so nothing is going to change. It's a bit like Donald Trump in America. Now, it's slightly different, I guess. There's a lot of maybe negative ramifications there. I'm not so much a supporter of Donald Trump, but nothing changed. Nothing changed in America. The sun came up the following morning. I went to work. I went to the shop. I bought a pack of crisps. I did what I did. I came home. I put the telly on. I had an apple, an orange, a drink of water. Everything changed. Sorry, nothing changes. Everything stayed the same. So I don't think Brexit is going to make that much of a difference. I think it's just a lot of people who are worried that it could make a difference and could have negative implications and connotations. And I understand people's concerns. And it's good that they're out there talking about it to enable, hopefully, a very much a Brexit where everybody, under the circumstances, is happy. So that's what I'd like to see, a bit of a meeting in the middle. Let's get everybody around the table once Brexit has happened. And I truly mean this, whether it's naive or not, I don't know. But get everyone around the table. I don't mean all the people in the world. That'll have to be a big table, or in the UK. But the people from Labour, Conservatives, other parties, and say, look, let's come to an agreement. And there'll have to be some give and take from everybody. But I think we should do that to make it work for the country. I think it's going to be fine. That's my impressions. I think it's just a bit of people throwing a bit of a hissy fit and exaggerating a lot. But remember, I'm not there, and I've been in America for a decade, so I'm slightly out of the loop somewhat, even though obviously I've got access to the news. It's not the same as being there. So if you disagree with what I'm saying, take that in mind, and I do accept that. But I think most people probably just agree with me. From all the conversations I've had, that pretty much seems to be the general consensus. So anyway, there we go. It was going to be a short vid, and it's ended up just being a typically long one. So I might try and edit it down a little bit. I'll see what I can do. If you've got any questions for next week, please feel, or the week after, please feel free to ask me, and I'll do my very best to answer. I'll try my very best not to throw another fit and say I'm going to quit YouTube. Well, to be fair, I never said I was going to quit. I was going to take a bit of a break. But yeah, going forward, I just think just variety on this channel. If you're a fan of variety, I think you'll like it. If you're not, well, it's been nice knowing you. See you later. But yes, I'll be back in 2 weeks' time with another vlog, and there'll probably be a pickups vid, maybe another thing, maybe not, in between there. So thank you for watching. Take it easy. See you later.